Undercover CEO goes to his own bakery. He freezes when he sees an employee crying in the back. Lightning flashed across the dark sky as Adam Carter stepped into the modest bakery he had built from the ground up. The mingling scents of warm bread, sugar, and hope clung to the air, stirring old memories of simpler days. With a heavy heart, Adam concealed his identity beneath a tattered baseball cap and a borrowed apron, determined to discover the truth behind the rumors that his beloved store was falling apart. He never expected that what he'd find would twist his gut with guilt and heartbreak. Yet within these walls, a sudden storm was brewing, one that would forever change his life. Adam Carter hadn't set foot in a Sunrise Delights bakery in nearly 2 years. After spending decades perfecting artisan bread recipes, designing charming cafe interiors, and training staff on how to greet customers with genuine warmth, he had gradually handed the operational reins to his management team. As the business flourished, expanding into multiple locations across the state, Adam receded into the background, taking on more of a visionary role from his cozy home office. He believed he had left the bakery chain in capable hands, but the grapevine told a different story: whispers of plummeting morale, poor sales at certain branches, and a dark cloud overshadowing the flagship store. The flagship location wasn't just another shop for Adam. It was the heart and soul of Sunrise Delights, the first store he had opened nearly 20 years ago in a quaint neighborhood. This little bakery had witnessed the hustle of early mornings as he rose to knead dough by 4 o'clock, had seen him greet regulars by name, and had felt the energy of a dreamer determined to offer something special. Over time, its warm, honey-colored walls had become a second home to him, an extension of his life's purpose. Now, as Adam parked his unassuming sedan down the street and walked the final block, anxiety twisted in his stomach. He had deliberately chosen the dusk hour to avoid drawing attention. The neon sign that once shone brightly, Sunrise Delights, flickered ominously, as though uncertain whether it wanted to illuminate the road for any late-night passerby. Seeing that sign in disrepair jolted Adam's memories back to the early days when he had personally wiped it clean each night. He tugged at the brim of his cap, letting the shadow obscure most of his face. If the staff recognized him, he feared he'd never get an honest glimpse of the true working conditions. People would put on a show, scurrying around with feigned dedication. Adam needed candor, raw and unvarnished. If the rumors were true that the staff felt undervalued, that management had grown authoritarian, he needed to witness it firsthand, not through a sanitized report from a district manager. 2 years away was a long time. Technology had changed. Competitors had sprung up. Starbucks was expanding aggressively in the area, luring loyal coffee lovers with seasonal beverages and loyalty points. Meanwhile, Sunrise Delights had begun losing some of its classic charm, or so the rumors went. Adam inhaled deeply, letting the familiar scent of vanilla and fresh dough ground him. Tonight would be the first step in uncovering the truth. Standing outside the bakery door, Adam gently pushed it open, bracing himself for what he might find behind the counter where his legacy now lived, and possibly languished. Walking into the bakery, Adam was assaulted by competing emotions. The interior was still welcoming in a superficial sense: cozy tables, a chalkboard menu scrawled with the day's specials, and a sweet smell drifting from the ovens. But something felt off. The energy was stale, as though the bakery itself sensed that times were changing for the worse. The impetus for Adam's undercover visit had been an unsettling conversation with a longtime friend and supplier. George, who delivered organic flour to Sunrise Delights for over a decade, had hinted that the atmosphere at the original store was not what it used to be. He'd shared second-hand stories of staff members feeling disrespected, and some even claimed to be working unpaid extra hours under subtle threats of losing their jobs if they complained. Initially, Adam thought it was an exaggeration. How could his bakery, once a paragon of fairness and warmth, sink to such practices? But then another tidbit emerged. A local newspaper columnist noted that Sunrise Delights was losing its personal touch. An editorial lamented that the new manager, a man named Jonathan Reyes, had a strict corporate approach that sapped the familial warmth from employees. Customers had written letters to the editor, describing a growing discontent among the staff. Adam had read those words with a clenched jaw, his heart pounding. If Jonathan was fostering a toxic environment, Adam needed to see it for himself. He considered calling a meeting or sending an investigator, but those options felt impersonal and too easy to manipulate. If the manager received word the big boss was coming, the store would be spick and span, staff all wearing forced smiles, the entire production orchestrated to impress. Adam wanted the truth in its raw form. That's how he ended up wearing old jeans, a second-hand apron, and a plain baseball cap tonight. He'd told no one about his plan, not even his closest confidant, the longtime district supervisor, Marianne. He feared the chain of command might inadvertently tip off the store. So he arrived unannounced, hoping to slip in as a new trainee or a temporary hire from an agency. He wanted to see Sunrise Delight's natural state, how the employees interacted with each other, whether they greeted customers with genuine warmth, and, more importantly, whether they felt safe and respected within these walls. Looking around at the half-filled tables and a single server at the register, Adam clenched his jaw again. Whatever was happening inside, he was about to find out. The atmosphere inside the bakery was quieter than Adam remembered. The gentle hum of conversation that once filled the space had thinned out. A handful of late-evening customers sipped on coffee or nibbled pastries. The overhead lights cast a soft yellow glow, reflecting off polished wooden surfaces. Though it was near closing time, there was usually a bustle of clean-up chores, wiping down counters, sweeping the floors, restocking for the next morning. Instead, Adam saw a lone cashier leaning on the counter, tapping aimlessly on her phone. A sense of unease took hold of him. This inattentive posture was the exact opposite of the cheery, welcoming staff he used to train. Keeping his eyes averted, he approached the counter with a polite smile. "Good evening," he said softly. "I'm here about the part-time position. I was told to come in around this hour." The cashier looked up from her phone, slightly startled. She gave him a once-over, her eyes lingering on his worn-out sneakers. Yeah? You want to talk to the manager, I guess?" Adam nodded, trying not to betray his nerves. "Yes, please." "If he's still around." She jerked a thumb toward a door marked staff only. "He's in the office. Busy night for him, so good luck." There was an odd note in her voice that sounded like caution. Adam wondered if it was because the manager was notoriously tough on new hires or simply disliked being interrupted. Regardless, he had to proceed. With a quick glance around to confirm that no one recognized him, Adam headed for the staff-only door. Past it lay a short hallway lined with faded posters about hygiene practices and safety regulations. The hallway ended in a small office, its door ajar. Through the gap, Adam could make out a cluttered desk stacked with invoices, an open laptop, and a bulky silhouette hunched over a keyboard. He gently knocked on the doorframe. "Sir? I'm here about the new position." The manager glanced up, his brow furrowing. "We're not doing interviews at this hour," he grumbled, but he motioned for Adam to come in anyway. "You the agency temp?" Adam seized the pretext. "Yes, sir. My name's Alan." He lied, using a variation of his first name to keep track of it better. "I was told to report here for the closing shift." The manager gave a curt nod, waved him to step into the cramped office, and closed the door behind them. This was the moment Adam had been both dreading and anticipating, his first face-to-face with the manager whose reputation preceded him. Jonathan Reyes, the manager, appeared to be a man weighed down by stress. His tie was loosened, and the collar of his shirt bore sweat stains, as if he'd been running all day without pause. His eyes, however, betrayed a certain impatience, like he had more important matters than dealing with a new hire. Name. Again? He asked tersely, flipping open a battered notebook. Alan, Adam repeated, glancing at Jonathan's face to gauge his reaction. There was none. Jonathan scribbled something. Alan, last name. A fleeting panic struck Adam. He hadn't planned out a fake last name. Walker, he improvised, hoping the manager wouldn't pry. Jonathan wrote it down without question. Fine. You're scheduled for the last 2 hours tonight, plus tomorrow's morning shift. Go see if Claire needs help. She's the lead baker on duty. After that, mop the floor, restock shelves, do whatever she says. Adam bit his tongue to keep from offering suggestions about store procedures. Instead, he nodded with feigned meekness. Leaving the office, Adam made his way through the hallway, noticing a faint sobbing sound echoing from behind a storage closet door. He paused, heart thumping. Someone was crying quietly, trying not to be heard. He glanced back toward Jonathan's office, no sign of the manager coming out. He inched closer to the closet door and gently pushed it open. A young woman with her hair in a messy ponytail sat on a stool, tears streaming down her cheeks. She clutched a small photograph in one hand, her other hand wiping at her eyes. Adam froze, torn between curiosity and concern. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, stepping inside. The woman jerked upright, startled. She quickly stuffed the photograph into her apron pocket. I'm fine," she said, eyes flicking to the door as though fearing someone might walk in. Adam recognized genuine heartbreak when he saw it. Over the years, he'd comforted staff who were dealing with real-life issues, sick relatives, financial troubles, heartbreaks. This had the same raw vulnerability. "I'm new here," he said, trying to keep his tone gentle. "My name's Alan. Is there anything I can do to help?" She shook her head fiercely, fresh tears threatening to fall. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't be seen like this." He stepped closer. "It's okay. Everyone gets overwhelmed sometimes." She exhaled, a trembling breath. "If Jonathan sees me crying on the clock, he'll dock my pay or threaten to fire me." Adam's heart clenched. So the rumors were true. This manager ruled through fear. "Look," Adam said carefully, "I'll keep watch, but maybe you should talk to someone you trust. It's not healthy to bottle it all up." She nodded silently, swiping away her tears. "Thank you," she whispered, then hurried out of the closet, leaving Adam standing there with the hollow echo of her sobs in his mind. Adam found Claire, the lead baker, bustling around the kitchen. Her strong arms effortlessly kneaded dough on a massive wooden table. She hardly noticed his approach, her focus locked on the rhythmic work. Despite the drama he had just stumbled upon, Adam needed to maintain appearances as a brand new temp employee. "Hi, I'm Alan," he said softly. "Jonathan said I should see if you need help." Claire nodded, eyes never leaving the dough. "Sure, wash your hands, grab an apron, and see if the ovens need restocking." Adam gave a polite nod and headed to the wash station. The entire kitchen was organized, but the sense of camaraderie he remembered from years ago was missing. Nobody was chatting, no playful banter or creative flair. Instead, each staff member operated like a cog in a machine, carefully keeping their heads down. After drying his hands, Adam surveyed the scene. The oven racks held trays of crusty loaves ready to be placed out front, alongside delicate pastries cooling on the stainless steel counters. Normally, this was the space that gave him joy, where flour, water, and yeast came to life under skilled hands. Now, there was a tense undercurrent. He approached Claire again. "I stocked the oven racks." "Anything else?" She glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "Do you know how to shape bread or pipe pastries?" Adam almost smiled at the memory of countless nights he had spent perfecting these very tasks. but he forced himself to appear uncertain. "A little, yeah. I've done some baking." "Fine," she said, moving aside. "Finish shaping this dough. I need to check on something." Adam slid seamlessly into the task, letting muscle memory guide him. His hands remembered how to roll, shape, and tuck the dough for a perfect loaf. Claire, who had paused to watch him, raised an eyebrow. For a second, he feared he had tipped his hand by demonstrating too much skill. "You've done this before, haven't you?" she asked, curiosity sparking in her eyes. He shrugged. "A bit, here and there. I guess I'm just good with dough." She studied him more closely, but before she could press further, the door swung open and Jonathan entered the kitchen. The atmosphere immediately tightened. Claire turned away from Adam, focusing on something else, as though she didn't want to be caught chatting. Jonathan didn't speak. He simply scanned the kitchen, eyes critical, searching for inefficiencies. His gaze fell on Adam, who tried to act nervous, fiddling with the dough as if uncertain. Jonathan grunted in mild approval before stepping out again. "That's what I mean," Claire said under her breath once he was gone. "He's always watching, and if he doesn't like something, he comes down on us." Adam quietly nodded, his mind racing. He needed to find out more about what was happening here, particularly why that young woman had been crying. Little did he know that was only the tip of the iceberg. After Jonathan's quick inspection, the tension in the kitchen lingered. Adam continued shaping dough, mindful of Claire's watchful eye. It was clear the staff operated under constant scrutiny. Whenever the manager poked his head in, conversation halted, and everyone stiffened. But the undercurrent of fear was just one piece of the puzzle. Adam's mind swirled with questions. Who was the crying employee? Why did she believe Jonathan would dock her pay or fire her just for being emotional? Was she behind on tasks, or was something deeper going on? As the minutes ticked by, Adam's thoughts drifted back to that tearful encounter. He wondered if she was okay, or if someone else might be in similar distress. He decided that the best way to gather information was to observe quietly, help where he could, and form alliances without blowing his cover. He approached a younger male employee stacking boxes near the walk-in freezer. The man looked over his shoulder nervously when Adam said hello, as though fearful Jonathan would appear at any moment. "So, how long have you been here?" Adam asked casually, helping the man arrange the boxes. "About 6 months," he replied in a low voice. "My name's Marco." Adam nodded. "Alan, I'm new. Just got placed here tonight." Marco offered a weak smile. "Welcome, I guess. They'll work you hard." Adam seized the chance. "I noticed a lot of tension. Is the manager always like this?" Marco's eyes flicked to the door leading back to the office. "You have no idea. Every tiny mistake, every small delay, he's on us. Last week, one of the other guys forgot to restock cups before open, and Jonathan made him stay 3 hours past his shift, unpaid, to learn a lesson." Adam's chest tightened with anger. This behavior was not only unethical, but potentially illegal. He felt his resolve solidify. He had to get to the bottom of Jonathan's methods, but he had to tread carefully. "What about the rest of the staff?" Adam prompted, lowering his voice. Marco shrugged. "We keep to ourselves. It's not worth angering him. I heard rumors the big boss, the owner, might step in soon. But who knows? They say he's too busy with expansion, probably doesn't care anymore." Adam forced a neutral expression, even as guilt pricked his conscience. He was the big boss, and if the staff believed he no longer cared, it meant he had failed to maintain the company culture he'd worked so hard to build. Unbeknownst to Marco, that big boss was standing right beside him, vowing silently that he would do whatever it took to fix this mess, if only it wasn't too late. A short while later, Adam busied himself wiping down the counters and taking note of the small details that once made Sunrise Delights special but now appeared neglected. The merchandise shelf was almost empty. The pastry labels, once hand-lettered with artistic flair, now looked hastily scrawled. Even the flower arrangement by the window had wilted, its petals dried and brittle. If Jonathan was supposed to be the caretaker of this branch, he was failing. The heartbreaking part was that the staff seemed too afraid to speak up or remedy the situation. Adam's eyes roamed the bakery, landing on the woman who had been crying. She was at a corner table, meticulously folding bakery boxes, her eyes still puffy from tears. Deciding he needed to talk to her again, he approached with caution, keeping one eye on the kitchen door in case Jonathan emerged. "Hey," he said gently, picking up a stack of boxes to help her fold. "I never got your name." She looked up, startled for a moment, then offered a tentative smile. "I'm Mia." "Mia," Adam repeated, nodding. "Earlier, the first sorry if I intruded. I just wanted to be sure you were okay." She hesitated, glancing at the door. "It's fine," she whispered. "It's just. I got into a fight with Jonathan. He said my performance has been slipping, and if I don't improve, he'll cut my hours." "I can't afford that." Adam's brow furrowed. "Are you living paycheck to paycheck?" Mia let out a shaky breath. "I'm helping my mum pay her medical bills. Without overtime, we fall behind. Jonathan knows it, and he uses that against me. Sometimes he suggests I come in early or stay late off the clock if I want to stay on his good side." Anger roiled in Adam's stomach. It was worse than he'd feared. Jonathan was exploiting personal vulnerabilities to manipulate staff. The question was, how had he gotten away with it for so long? Did no one from upper management check in? Adam cursed himself for not seeing the red flags sooner, those vague HR reports, the minor complaints that never reached his desk in detail. "Has anyone tried to report this?" Adam asked, keeping his voice low. Mia's eyes flickered with fear. "To who? The district supervisor? She's never here. And if Jonathan finds out we went over his head, we're done." Adam swallowed the lump in his throat. He realized now that Jonathan had likely cultivated an atmosphere of intimidation where no one dared to speak up. Yet, beneath the fear, Adam could see the spark of resilience in Mia's eyes. She wasn't ready to give up. She just felt trapped. Gently placing a hand on her shoulder, Adam offered a reassuring squeeze. "Just hold on, okay? Things can change. Don't lose hope." Mia nodded, blinking back tears. She opened her mouth to say something else, but the swinging door from the kitchen let out a sharp creak. Jonathan stood there, scanning the room. Instantly, Mia bowed her head, busied herself with the boxes, and Adam pretended to do the same, vowing silently that this injustice would not stand for long. The rest of the closing shift passed in a blur of menial tasks, mopping the floors, wiping down tables, and double-checking the pastry stock in the display cases. Adam noted that Jonathan hovered like a dark cloud, making pointed comments whenever he felt someone was slacking. Yet, to Adam's surprise, Jonathan didn't harass him directly. Perhaps the manager was too busy, or perhaps he simply enjoyed focusing on those he knew were vulnerable. Despite the tension, Adam found small moments of solidarity with the other employees. Whenever Jonathan retreated to his office, heads would lift and people would share weary smiles. Claire, the lead baker, slipped Adam a cup of herbal tea, whispering, "You're doing good work. Keep it up." Marco gave him a covert thumbs up while rearranging the bakery boxes in the storeroom. Even Mia managed a soft smile that conveyed gratitude. An hour before closing, a middle-aged man in a floral delivery uniform strolled in, carrying a bouquet of fresh daisies. He approached the counter where Adam happened to be tidying up. "Hey," the delivery man greeted. "Is the manager around?" Adam's heartbeat quickened. "He's in the back. Can I help you with anything?" "These are for a woman named Mia," he said, checking the card. "It's from her mother, apparently. Says, 'Thanks for working so hard. Love, Mom.'" A warm feeling spread through Adam's chest at this simple, heartfelt gesture. He gestured for the man to wait, stepping aside to call Mia from the back. Mia emerged, and her eyes widened at the sight of the daisies. "Oh my God," she breathed, carefully taking them into her arms. "I didn't expect this." Adam discreetly moved away, but not before noticing tears glistening in Mia's eyes, this time from happiness, not sorrow. The delivery man left with a polite tip of his cap. As Mia disappeared into the staff room to place the flowers somewhere safe, Adam felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to find Claire standing there. "I saw how you helped Mia earlier," she said in a low voice. "That was nice of you." Adam feigned modesty. "I just hate seeing someone cry." Claire glanced around, ensuring Jonathan wasn't lurking. "We all do, but we need more than sympathy. Things around here have been bad for a while. Jonathan's attitude gets worse every day." She lowered her voice further. "I'm thinking of talking to the district supervisor, Marianne. The first thing her name is. But I'm scared he'll find out." Adam carefully weighed his words. "Sometimes you have to take risks to make things better. Maybe if enough people complain, they can't all be fired." Claire's eyes shone with a mix of hope and fear. "Yeah, maybe." A sense of cautious unity began to blossom. In that moment, Adam realized that not all was lost in this bakery. Beneath the oppressive weight of Jonathan's management, there were still embers of community and kindness. If he played his cards right, those embers might ignite into a flame of change. As the final hour approached, Adam found himself alone in the back storeroom, tidying shelves that had long needed attention. The hush of the nearly empty bakery gave him a moment to reflect on the past, on who he used to be before he receded into the corporate background. He remembered the early days vividly, the modest loan he'd taken out to rent a cramped commercial space, the all-nighters spent perfecting dough consistency, the awkward first attempts at latte art. Back then, Sunrise Delights was just a dream supported by a small team of believers who wanted to spread the joy of fresh bread and pastries. Adam had insisted on fair wages and benefits from the start, because he believed happy employees made happy customers. He thought of Linda, one of his first hires, who eventually became his second in command. She used to say, "A bakery is more than flour and sugar, it's a place where people nourish their souls." Adam had carried that phrase in his heart. Yet somewhere along the line, as the brand grew, he'd let the intricacies of spreadsheets, expansion strategies, and franchising overshadow that core ethos. A memory flickered the day he signed the deal to open 5 more locations across the state. He felt a surge of pride seeing the Sunrise Delight sign appear in new neighborhoods. But with each new store, the personal touch got diluted. He no longer knew every employee by name. He no longer hand-wrote holiday cards to staff. Instead, he delegated more and more responsibilities to trusted managers and supervisors. Now, with the harsh reality of Jonathan's mismanagement staring him in the face, Adam grappled with guilt. He'd let someone with an authoritarian streak hijack his original vision. While he relaxed in his comfortable suburban home, employees like Mia were overworked and under emotional duress. He sighed, running a hand over a faded photograph pinned to the storeroom wall, a group shot of the original staff from 5 years ago. Their faces beamed with enthusiasm, aprons stained with flour and chocolate. Many had moved on, some had been promoted, but the spirit in that photo was what Adam needed to recapture. He yearned to restore the sense of belonging that once defined Sunrise Delights. With resolve hardening in his chest, Adam decided that this undercover experience was more than just a fact-finding mission. It was a wake-up call, an opportunity to rebuild his company from the ground up, starting with the very store that birthed it all. But to do that, he'd have to unveil the truth about Jonathan. And when the time came, Adam vowed to make sure every injustice was addressed, and every loyal employee got the respect they deserved. Closing time arrived with a tense hush. Customers filed out, and the staff began their final clean-up routine. Jonathan emerged from his office, handing out last-minute orders. Mia was told to sweep the floor even though she had done so earlier. Marco was instructed to re-wipe all the tables, and Claire was sent to reorganize a perfectly neat storeroom. It was as if Jonathan was testing the limits of their patience or simply asserting power. Adam stayed in the background, completing any task that came his way. He noticed how Jonathan watched each person like a hawk, crossing his arms and pursing his lips in disapproval over the smallest details. Finally, with all the chores done and the lights dimmed, the staff gathered near the entrance, waiting for Jonathan to dismiss them. "All right," Jonathan said in a clipped tone. "We open at 6:00 a.m. tomorrow. Claire and Mia, you're on morning prep. Marco, get here by 5:30 to unload deliveries. And, Alan, is it?" He turned his gaze on Adam. Adam nodded, feigning nervousness. "You'll be here at 5:00 a.m. MTO, help Claire and Mia set up. Don't be late. If you are, don't bother coming at all." Adam swallowed his anger. Understood. Jonathan reached into the register and took out some cash, handing it to each employee without a word. Adam realized it was their nightly wage portion for certain tasks, perhaps a tip share or a meager addition. When he handed Mia hers, Adam noticed she received significantly less than the others, despite putting in more hours. But Mia didn't protest. She simply nodded and left, hugging her daisies protectively. Before Adam could do anything, Jonathan locked the entrance behind them. The manager fished out his keys, heading toward the staff parking area. Adam had to act quickly. Summoning his courage, he cleared his throat. "Sir, if I could have a moment? I have some questions about the morning shift." Jonathan rolled his eyes. "What is it?" Adam took a mental breath, choosing his words carefully. "I noticed you asked Mia to stay late, but you didn't pay her for that time." Jonathan raised an eyebrow. "And why is that your concern?" Adam tried to look non-confrontational. "I just want to understand the store policy. If we work extra hours, we should be compensated, right?" A flicker of anger crossed Jonathan's face. "Listen, Alan, you're new here. Don't stick your nose where it doesn't belong. I have a system for how I handle hours and wages. If you don't like it, leave. Plenty of people want this job." His dismissive tone made Adam's blood boil, but he kept calm. He needed to gather more evidence and not blow his cover prematurely. Still, he had to push a little further. "Sure. Just wanted to be clear on the rules," Adam said, backing down for the moment. Jonathan gave a curt nod. "Get out of here. I'll see you at 5:00 a.m. Adam watched Jonathan stride away, the weight of the situation heavy in the air. The confrontation had confirmed what he suspected. Jonathan had no intention of rectifying his treatment of employees. Change would have to come from a higher authority, and Adam was exactly that, whether Jonathan realized it or not. The question now was how best to reveal himself in a way that would truly right the wrongs. That night, Adam couldn't sleep. His mind buzzed with anger, guilt, and a strange anticipation of what would happen once he made his true identity known. But he wanted more than just a showdown with Jonathan. He needed to ensure that the entire staff's grievances were properly addressed. At 4:45 a.m., Adam arrived outside the bakery. The sunrise was just a glow in the distance, the streets largely empty. He noticed 2 cars already parked, Claire's old sedan and another car he assumed belonged to Mia. It was battered, probably from countless trips to the hospital or side jobs. Inside, Claire and Mia were hunched over the prep table, measuring out ingredients under fluorescent kitchen lights that flickered to life for the morning shift. Neither looked surprised to see Adam this early. They simply offered him tired smiles. "Long night?" Claire asked sympathetically. Adam nodded. "Yeah, couldn't sleep. Thought I'd get a head start. Mia, still placing her daisies in a makeshift vase near the workstation, gave him a grateful look. Thanks again for yesterday. Adam just nodded, not wanting to draw Jonathan's attention if he happened to be lurking around. Speaking of which, Jonathan burst in around 5:10 a.m., scowling at the already busy staff as if they'd done something wrong. With a thin-lipped stare, he gave instructions on what pastries to feature, how many loaves to bake, and where to place promotional items in the display area. As the morning bustle began, the first customers trickled in, and Adam watched from behind the counter, ready to assist. He noticed how Jonathan's behavior changed in front of customers. He became sugary sweet, praising staff for show, but the moment a customer left, he would revert to barking orders. The contrast was jarring. Mid-morning, a petite woman in a Sunrise Delights uniform strode in, her expression exasperated. She was well-dressed, carrying a clipboard and a look of controlled frustration. Adam recognized her as Marianne, the district supervisor. His pulse quickened. Perhaps she had come to address the concerns. Or maybe Jonathan had called her for something else entirely. Jonathan greeted Marianne with a thin smile. "Didn't expect you here today." Marianne raised an eyebrow. "Is there a reason I shouldn't be?" Before Jonathan could respond, she set her clipboard on a nearby table and turned to the staff. "I've heard some complaints about this store. Thought I'd pay a surprise visit and see how things are running." Adam observed the flicker of panic in Jonathan's eyes, but the manager quickly masked it. "Well, you'll find we've got everything under control." Marianne wasn't fooled. She took a quick glance at the staff, noting their anxious faces. Adam wondered if this was the moment to reveal his true identity, or if he should wait for the right time. The staff seemed to be on the verge of speaking up. Claire, in particular, looked like she was summoning her courage. Then Marianne turned toward Adam. "And you are?" "Alan Walker," Adam replied, offering a handshake. "I'm new here." Her gaze sharpened, as if she sensed something off, but she merely nodded and made a note on her clipboard. "Let's see how the day goes. If anyone has any concerns, feel free to pull me aside." Adam exhaled. The showdown was coming, but not yet. For now, he'd let Marianne do her inspection, gather the evidence, and see if the staff could find their voice. Still, the tension in the bakery had reached a fever pitch. Something was about to give, and Adam stood at the center of it all. Marianne wasted no time. She conducted a thorough walkthrough from the display counter to the storeroom, chatting casually with employees as she went. Although the staff seemed hesitant, Adam could see little glimmers of honesty slipping through their guarded expressions. Claire subtly hinted at mismanagement. Marco spoke of unpaid hours, though he avoided mentioning Jonathan by name. Mia just shook her head, her eyes downcast. Even that small gesture told Marianne plenty. The tension mounted when Marianne finally cornered Jonathan in the office. The door was closed, but voices escalated. Adam, waiting by the hallway, heard Jonathan's muffled protests and Marianne's firm rebuttals. Suddenly, the door flew open. "That's not how we treat employees at Sunrise Delights," Marianne said sharply, stepping into the hallway. Her face flushed. Jonathan followed, looking both defiant and cornered. "Marianne, you have to understand," Jonathan began. "Some employees are lazy. They complain about overtime because they can't keep up." Marianne's nostrils flared. "I've heard enough to know there's a pattern of intimidation and unfair wage practices here. I'll need to bring this directly to the owner." Jonathan's eyes flashed with anger, but also fear. The owner's too busy with expansions to care about these small issues. Adam decided this was his moment. If he wanted to protect his staff, he needed to step forward. He took a steadying breath and approached them. "Actually," Adam said quietly, removing his cap, "one wouldn't say the owner doesn't care." Marianne blinked. "Excuse me." Adam stood straighter. "My name is Adam Carter. I'm the founder and CEO of Sunrise Delights. A hush fell over the hallway, broken only by the muffled sounds of the bakery out front. Jonathan looked stunned, his face draining of color. Marianne's expression melted from frustration to sheer astonishment. "Adam Carter?" she repeated, eyes flicking to his borrowed apron. "What on earth are you doing here disguised as a temp worker?" "I came to see how this store was being managed firsthand," Adam explained. "I'd heard rumors of employee mistreatment. I needed to see it for myself." Marianne found her composure, though her voice trembled slightly with shock. "So, all this time," Adam nodded, "I've watched enough to know that Jonathan has been exploiting and intimidating my staff." Jonathan sputtered, trying to salvage his position. "I was just trying to enforce discipline. These employees, enough," Adam snapped, an undercurrent of fury in his usually calm tone. "Don't insult them any further. I've seen their dedication, their willingness to work even beyond their hours. All you've done is bully them and abuse your authority." Jonathan opened his mouth to argue, but the fierce look in Adam's eyes stopped him cold. Suddenly, the entire staff, Claire, Mia, Marco, and others peeked into the hallway, drawn by the commotion. Adam addressed them directly. "I owe each of you an apology for not intervening sooner. I set out to build a bakery chain that felt like a family, and I failed to prevent this tyranny. That ends today." Turning to Jonathan, Adam spoke in a low, resonant voice. "Your tenure here is over. Gather your things and leave. Effective immediately, you're fired." A collective gasp rippled through the staff. Jonathan's face contorted with rage, but there was nothing he could do. Karma had arrived in the form of the very man he'd never expected to see behind an apron. Jonathan stormed out of the bakery, slamming the door behind him so hard that the glass rattled. The staff stood frozen in a mixture of shock and relief. Adam looked at each of them in turn, Claire with flour streaked on her apron, Mia clutching her daisies, Marco rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly, and several others who had been quietly observing. Taking a steady breath, Adam addressed them. "I'm sorry you all had to endure that. I never wanted Sunrise Delights to be run by fear or intimidation. I built this place to be a home, not just a job. From now on, things will change." Mia stepped forward, tears shining in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, "for believing us." Claire nodded, her posture still tense. "He had us all so scared. I didn't think we had anywhere to turn." Adam's chest tightened with guilt. "I understand, and I take responsibility. I allowed someone like Jonathan to rise through the ranks unchecked. I was too focused on expansion to notice what was happening right here at home." Marianne cleared her throat. "Adam, what's our next step? We have to follow proper procedures, an investigation, potential back pay for employees, and a new manager." "Of course," Adam replied. "We'll rectify any unpaid wages immediately. Marianne, please lead the investigation. I want full transparency and open lines of communication with each employee." As for the new manager, he paused, scanning the staff. "Claire, how would you feel about stepping up as interim manager?" Claire's eyes widened. "Me? I've never managed a store." Adam offered a reassuring smile. "I've seen your commitment. You've essentially been holding this place together under Jonathan's tyranny. You can do it, and I'll be here to help." She swallowed hard, then nodded. "All right, I'll do my best." A ripple of approval washed through the employees. Marco exhaled in relief, while Mia even let out a soft cheer. Adam felt a rush of warmth flood him. This was how it was supposed to be, employees feeling valued, stepping up, and uniting for a common purpose. Leaning closer to Mia, Adam gently asked, "Your mum's medical bills, do you have enough hours to cover them?" Mia cast her eyes down. "I was barely making it with the extra shifts Jonathan forced me to do, but that money wasn't always fully paid." Adam exchanged a look with Marianne. "We'll fix that," he said firmly. You'll get the overtime you worked for retroactively, and if you need more flexible hours or a pay advance, we can arrange it. No one here should have to choose between keeping their job and caring for their family. Tears welled in Mia's eyes, but this time they were tears of gratitude. I can't thank you enough. Adam gently put a hand on her shoulder. You don't need to. Just know that your work is appreciated. That's what I should have ensured all along. In that moment, the bakery felt alive again. The shift from fear to relief was palpable. Though much remained to be resolved, paperwork, staff turnover, and corporate policies, Adam felt certain Sunrise Delights was finally heading in the right direction. Over the following weeks, Sunrise Delights underwent a remarkable transformation. Word spread that Jonathan had been fired by none other than the Undercover CEO himself. Employees who had resigned under pressure began reaching out, asking if they could reapply. Customers noticed the shift in morale, often remarking that the bakery had returned to its friendly old self. Marianne held one-on-one meetings with each staff member to document their experiences. She tallied up owed wages and oversaw the reimbursement process. The company's legal team prepared to handle any potential claims, ensuring employees received every penny they had been denied. Adam insisted on going above and beyond. He provided small bonuses as a gesture of goodwill, acknowledging the hardship endured. Meanwhile, Claire took to her interim manager role with quiet determination. She organized the kitchen processes, reassigned shifts more fairly, and introduced a new daily routine to boost efficiency without sacrificing the bakery's homey atmosphere. She even let staff create a suggestion board, encouraging everyone to share ideas and approach Adam had used in the company's early days. Mia continued to work diligently, though now she did so without the knot of anxiety in her stomach. Adam noticed she would sometimes pause to smell the daisies her mother had sent, a reminder that love and compassion could thrive even in adversity. Marco, free from Jonathan's intimidation, proved himself to be a natural people person. He started greeting customers enthusiastically, forging real connections that brought repeat business. In an effort to reconnect with the heart of the company, Adam began spending 2 days a week at the flagship bakery. He jumped behind the counter during busy mornings, helping to take orders, shape bread dough, and create latte art for customers. People recognized him occasionally. Photos of him had circulated online after the Undercover boss news broke, but he tried to keep the focus on the store and its people, not on himself. Through social media, local news outlets picked up the story of how the CEO discovered the manager's toxic regime and stepped in to make it right. Sunrise Delights began trending in the community, with many customers expressing admiration for Adam's hands-on approach. Even Starbucks regulars dropped by to see what the fuss was about. Some decided to stay for the warm sense of community they couldn't quite find at bigger chains. In each staff meeting, Adam stressed the importance of respecting one another and treating customers like family. A bakery is not just about selling bread and pastries, he reiterated. It's a place to nourish souls, to bring comfort, and to celebrate life's little joys. Looking around at his renewed team, Adam felt a surge of pride mixed with humble gratitude. The crisis had been harrowing, but it had also reignited the passion that started Sunrise Delights in the first place. He made a silent vow never to let that spirit fade again. The story of Adam Carter's undercover mission is a reminder that empathy, honesty, and respect can light up even the darkest corners of a workplace. A bakery can be more than a storefront. It can be a place of hope, friendship, and second chances. By unmasking a toxic manager and standing up for employees who felt silenced, Adam reclaimed the heart of Sunrise Delights. The sweet smell of pastries now mingles with the warmth of gratitude and renewed purpose. proving that it's never too late to correct a wrong. If you found inspiration in this dramatic tale of hidden truths and overdue justice, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Let's continue exploring stories that reveal the power of compassion and leadership. Every click helps us reach more people, so thank you for being part of our community.